Hello, my friends, and welcome back. The subject of my video today is virtue. Talking about virtue, values, and I will analyze virtue in the context of courage, uh, sacrifice, loyalty, um, and I will use three sets of examples that I will put them face to face. Um, I have here a few notes that I would just pick at so I don't make too many mistakes. And the first example, the first example would be the example of the Masada incident in Palestine by uh, the Jews. It was a war, uh, uprising of the Jews, and the Romans care of them in 67 CE, Common Era, and the Masada incident occurred on the 73 CE. I would put that against another um, incident that occurred in April 1945 in Berlin, more precisely in Adolf Hitler's bunker. And the protagonists of this event are the Goebbels family, which was the members composed out of Joseph Goebbels, Magda Goebbels, which was his wife, and their five children. Maybe it's good to mention that Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda in Germany at that time, he had a PhD, I think, in philosophy, and that reminds me of another person who had also a PhD in philosophy, I think, and his name is Benito Mussolini. So there are two PhDs um, leading countries and or be at the top of the leadership of these two countries. I'm not going to say that they are, you see, they're educated, but next time when we hear about a PhD uh, holder, then maybe you would be a little bit more skeptical in attributing that person only perfect scores and the greatest possible value. The second incident I'm going to discuss, and I will put face to face, will be the trans youth rights versus Hitler Jungen, Hitler Youth in 1945 Berlin. So I will oppose them and discuss them and see their, um, I don't know, how we can relate to one another or where we can't relate to one another. And the third example is I'm going to use three examples, put face to face, or and one is the Medal of Merit, Purple Heart, United States for bravery. All these three medals that I'm going to mention are awarded for bravery in combat, in war. Purple Heart in the United States, Michael the Brave or Mihai Viteazu in Romania, and then you have the Iron Cross, which is known for the Germany in Germany. So I will discuss, as I said, the value and courage, sacrifice, loyalty, and see if these values and if justice and logic, if they are administered in a situational way, which means I use it here in a certain way, but on this example, which is similar, I will use it differently for certain reasons. So I will go back now with the Jewish revolt, uprising from 67 CE, Masada. So the Romans obviously tried to and succeeded in squashing the Jewish revolt. I'm not going to discuss the who was right and who was wrong. That's not the point here. So a bunch of Jews, they retreated on a mountain top, like a little fortress over there, Masada, in 73 CE. And the Romans surrounded the mountain, and you can still see the mountain right now, and it's flattened and so on, if you look at pictures and online. So the Romans surrounded the mountain, and then the Jewish leaders on top of the mountain decided that they could not fend against the Romans. So they decided to commit suicide, mass suicide. So they killed every person on the mount, children, women, old men, and so on. A total of 967 people committed this act of bravery, of courage, of sacrifice. So they do not fall into the hands of the Romans and become slaves, or women may be raped, and who knows what. That's a very virtuous act, I would say, instead of allowing yourself to be captured and, as I said, enslaved, raped, tortured, whatever. So I agree with all the university professors and the intelligentsia in the United States and some other places where they view this act of bravery for what it is, an act of bravery, courage, virtues. And now I will discuss the other one, the opposite one, which is the Goebbels family. I will provide the context. So it was April 1945. The Soviet army was about 500 yards from the bunker, surrounding the bunker. And in there were the Goebbels family. Magda, Joseph, 5 children. We know how the Soviet commissars instructed the Soviet soldier to act in front and when they meet German women. And that's rape them, comrade, and blah, blah, blah. You can find that. And you can find the names of the commissars who actually came with that order. They instituted it and provided it to the army. Just check their names and where they come from. Then, so the Goebbels family's life would have been obviously terminated there, or the same as the Romans probably would have done with the Jews and Masada mountain. So they decided, Joseph and Magda, they decided to kill their children, poison their children, strangle them, whatever that was, because they're different. Not them, they did not strangle them, but there are some sources that say that there was another guy who was assigned this thing to do. So the result was that the 5 children were killed by their parents, and then the parents committed suicide, and then their bodies were partially burnt on their orders by the remaining German military stuff in the bunker. And then the Russians, you can see the pictures, discovered their bodies, and they took pictures of them. You can see Goebbels burnt partially. So I know that the Goebbels, the parents, did not celebrate killing their children. They didn't open a bottle of champagne. So it was not like they were monsters, as they're portrayed by the same academics, academia, intelligentsia in the United States, as being awful for doing what they did. The thing is, the Goebbels and uh, Hitler, they heard the news of how Benito Mussolini was treated in Milan, Italy, in Milano, by people who captured him and his mistress, and how they sexually abused them both, and then beat them, killed them, urinated on them, hung them upside down in the market, in the main market, the center of the town. You can see pictures as well. Um, so when these guys heard how they would be brought to justice, I think they had no doubt that that would be their um, outcome, the outcome of their life. And I would have probably done the same thing if I were them. Now, I'm not going to discuss how good or bad Goebbels was, or Magda, or their children. I'm just discussing the act, which I think if you consider the act from the Mount, Masada, as being courageous and, as I said, virtuous and all that, then this one should be considered the same way. You, instead of allowing your children and yourself to be mutilated and, I don't know, say enslaved in 1945, but incarcerated, maybe killed on the spot, hurt and tortured and so on, raped, you commit this and you don't allow your children to have the same faith as you would have, or the guys on the mountain uh, about what, 1890 years before in Palestine. So, but instead, Magda and Joseph's decision is not considered and is not viewed as courageous or no, because they are the bad guys. So that's a selective um, and a selective, subjective, illogic way of analyzing and dispersing justice. So that's with that. I will get to the second example, which is the, we nowadays we hear about the rights that the uh, teenagers here in the United States, or children under the age of 18, should be allowed to, and should be allowed to identify as something else, and start the process of it's called transitioning into the other entity. And that could also mean that they should be allowed, the children should be allowed to decide to have, for instance, hormone blocking uh, medical procedures, and even their genitalia being removed and so on. So they have this right, some advocates are saying, and the rest of the population should see that as we are required or requested to see it as courage, in part from these children, courage and sacrifice and value and virtues, because they have the courage to do this, make this move, genitalia, block the hormones. These are irreversible changes. Now this is one. So we should all, and this should be done without the parents' consent. They try to do this. I think in some states, United States, they already succeeded. So if I'm 13 and I want to start my transition, or I'm 7, I want to start my transition, then the parents should not have anything to do, because the state will protect the children's rights to make this step. But if the child does something stupid at school, then the parent is called, because he or she, they are the caretakers. so they get punished. But in this case, no. The parents have nothing to say because it's not something very important that would alter the child's life forever, for the rest of their life. So this is viewed, or tried to be viewed and pushed as heroic, courageous, with value, virtuous. How courageous the child is and should not be, viewed in any other way. And those people who say that view the Hitlerjugend, the units of youth, children, in at the end of the Second World War, when Berlin was surrounded by and attacked by sieged by the Soviet forces. They enrolled and they fought for, and this is the difference between the trans youth, virtue and courage, and these children. They were not taken by their parents and thrown into the war. They were not taken by Hitler. So their decision was that they will fight in a war to defend their families, their nation, their way of living, their culture, their motherland, their civilization. See how many values outside of their own interest they would fight for. Obviously, they fight for them because they want to, survive on this planet. So I would put that too. So it's seven, at least seven. Compare the seven that's altruistic because you fight for things outside of yourself. Idealistic. Compare that sacrifice, courage, loyalty with the other one that we're supposed to see it as courageous, and the state has nothing to say about it, and the parents should have no say. They have one personal quest. I will change my sex. I identify as something else. One. It's not for the society. It's not for the ancestors, for heroes, for history, for nation, for motherland, for way of living. For no, it's just for themselves. Now you take this and this, and you have to put value. If you're objective and justice is blind, and use logic, and see, you will get to a certain conclusion. Now, if you are an advocate, a activist, an ideologue, then you obviously would not say this. These are the bad people, so that everything they did is bad. These are the good people, or the way that we want to see them as good people, and we agree with that. Now that brings me to the third example: the medals of honor for courage in battle, in war. We have Purple Heart, Michael the Brave in Romania, and Iron Cross in Germany then. So, if I have a problem with my neighbor and we start to fight, and then, I don't know, I throw a grenade, and then the child from that family jumps over the grenade explodes, the child torn to pieces, but it saves the family, his family. Now they are my enemy. So should I consider that act as stupid because they're my enemies? Or should I consider the child's act as virtuous, full of valor, courageous, loyal to his family? So he thought about outside of himself, not only for his own protection, he thought about his family, his house, the whole thing. Now, obviously, that's my enemy. So, in itself, the act was courageous, was brave. So, I should consider that as brave, regardless if that person was my enemy, and regardless if, let's say, that family, would eventually come and conquer me and cause harm to me. Regardless of the outcome, that act in itself was a virtuous act, regardless who did it. regardless. So then, when we analyze these medals, for instance, in the current terms of the intelligentsia in the United States, we should look at, for instance, the Nazi insignia, right? The Nazi Iron Cross, right? It stays right here, or here if it's a class 2. Uh, as not virtuous, not courageous. No, no, those are Nazi, they are bad. Not because the bearer, the person who has them, who was awarded those, not because the person who was awarded them did not do something courageous. It's just because he belongs to the wrong people, and I don't like them. So I, with my infantile mentality, I deem him and that medal as being bad. They're not courageous. Why? Because they fought against me. Well, the same thing should look at the Purple Heart. For instance, Iraqis, or let's say people from uh, Vietnam, or people from Korea, or people from Syria, if you want, even Second World War, if you take the Germans and their enemies of the Americans at that time. Even if the American who was awarded the Purple Heart did an act of bravery in itself, but it was their enemy, so it doesn't really matter that. And then the same with the Romanians, Michael the Brave award for courage, for bravery. They should look at Purple Heart and Iron Cross as nothing. Why? Because at one point they were both the Romanians' enemies. So then you see, value, valor, virtue should not be situational. You can't pick and choose whenever you like it, use it virtues for, and if the same thing similar for a similar action, you don't because it's politically incorrect. And you can do that, but you will not be called a, how should I put it, virtuous, intelligent, honest, logical, fair, just person. You will be a hack. You would be an activist. You would be an infantile. That's my assessment. That's my take on that. If you disagree with that, that's fine. Maybe you can make me see things from a different perspective, and maybe change my assessment vis-a-vis these 3 examples with this 6 protagonists. So thank you for being with me today again. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye bye.